Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, and coming to you, man, we're back-to-back here in consecutive shows and almost back-to-back days. We are timely. We are on top of it. We are ready for free agency. We being myself and my colleague, cohort, partner in crime, brother from another mother, the host who doesn't like toast. You're not allowed to say it. I am. And one Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, what's going on?
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a lovely day to be neighborly.
So there was just something I saw on Twitter, and the NFL insiders are all over the place right now because we got a salary cap figure of 182, or was it 182 and a half? And originally pre-COVID, everyone was thinking this was going to be like around 200, 205, something far bigger. And teams are now had to trim the fat, so to speak. Not only just the Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, who may or may not be able to field an entire football team this upcoming season. In fact, I'm going to try and find that. The Kansas City Chiefs getting rid of both of their tackles, Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. And we've got some guys that we're eyeballing. We're going to go through all the positions and all these different free agents, but I wanted to bring up, let me see if I can find it here, because it was a pretty cool alert. Now, guess what? I'm not going to be able to find it. But it was a quote from Brian Flores, Miami Dolphins, and I guess he said, cue up the song, you can't always get what you want. And I think Ian Rappaport is the one who said, oh, that definitely sounds like a team that's not going to be getting heavily involved in day one of free agency. And maybe that's going to be a lot of teams that don't have money, and I think that could be the theme song for this episode as well. So we're going to find out. I guess the easy one here, Brian, we are working off of, let's just announce this to the world, Mike Clay at Mike Clay NFL. He is self-titled here as an ESPN NFL prognosticator. So you're not the only person who uses that word, by the way. The great Karnak over here.
That's right.
So hashtag girl dad. We need to bring Mike on the show. I wonder if ESPN would release him from the shackles. He already sounds like he's 2 for 2 here.
He
so
sounds
far.
like our kind of guy.
Yeah, he really does. He also says Prison Mike is biased against your favorite team. 3 for 3. He's our dude.
Beautiful.
But anyways, Mike Clay has the most recent one we can work off of right now from 20 hours ago, because there's more. In fact, just the moves we just talked about with the Chiefs and their 2 tackles aren't on this sheet. And we'll talk about that, because I don't know whether Mitchell Schwartz or Eric Fisher are guys the Steelers could even target if they wanted to. And one thing to think about with everything when it comes to free agency here is not all the time is one man's trash another man's treasure here.
Sometimes it's still just trash.
Yeah, some of these players were cap casualties, so they may have something to offer. Teams just couldn't afford to pay them and got in cap trouble. That happens. You have situations where they weren't a fit with their current team, or they're coming off a rookie deal. Like, for example, and he does have these kind of ranked on here. They're not just in any particular order, which is interesting, because like Jameis Winston is his top quarterback over Mitch Trubisky on this list. And the reason I'm mentioning this, we don't have franchise tags here, so we know that's all said and done. And did we get to talk about that a little bit more in depth, Brian? It was like, as far as a franchise tag, not franchising Bud Dupree or franchising JuJu Smith-Schuster, just as a refresher if you missed our show from earlier this week, not using the franchise tag is because the Steelers can't afford what those franchise tag tenders are for, or what
Correct.
They come to. So
Absolutely.
You're talking $19 million for Bud Dupree, and those are fully guaranteed, so they would owe that money up front. And I'm sure JuJu Smith-Schuster's would be pretty high as well. So these are guys that it doesn't mean they're not necessarily going to come back. More than likely, that was kind of the last ditch effort of the buck stops here. The team can't just they're not just going to go start talking to another team and then I'm gonna pull out my trump card, the ace up the sleeve, the franchise tag, and now you can no longer talk. No, this is the cutoff, and now they know that they can go and explore other options as unrestricted free agents. So I just wanted to put that all down there because there's still maybe an outside possibility that some of the unrestricted free agents return. It's not guaranteed and not for guaranteed money, and the Steelers don't have the space for the guaranteed money. So without further ado, let's talk about the positions that we're not going to talk about. And I think I already started off with Jameis Winston and Mitch Trubisky here. Quarterback, not going to happen.
They're not going to sign a free agent quarterback. Zero, none, nothing.
We saw what we were discussing what Chase Daniels made over his career. The Steelers aren't paying anybody on this list. I'm not even going to mention all of them. I'm not going to mention anybody else, actually. That includes Cam Newton. Not happening, folks. Not going there.
You've now officially mentioned him, by the way.
Oh,
so
darn it. That's like mentioning he who shall not be named.
I wouldn't mention him.
Anyway, yes, that's one. Fullback. No need for a fullback.
They just restructured Watt, so no.
And I mean, I'm not going to get into that. Forget it. He's not a waste of money. He's a special teams guy too. Okay. Let's see. I don't know. I don't think we're really going to talk defensive line. I think they're pretty solid there. Especially based on what we feel as far as returning players, like a Tyson Alualu.
Unless they don't return Tyson Alualu, in which case they might find another vet that they think could slide in as a support player.
Let's see. Edge rusher.
I doubt it.
Let's hit this list real quick. Shaq Barrett. That's a no. That's out of the
can't afford him.
Jadeveon Clowney. No.
Don't want him and can't afford him.
Bud Dupree, much better player. And he's on this list. He's coming up right here. Yannick Ngakoue and Carl Lawson both listed ahead of Bud Dupree. Carl Lawson's really kind of a one-trick pony. He's just straight up a pass rusher.
Yeah, I know.
At least that's how the Bengals used him. We never saw him in any other capacity. Let's see. Leonard Floyd. Well, Bud Dupree, Leonard Floyd, Melvin Ingram, Carlos Dunlap, Hassan Reddick, Alden Smith, Matt Judon. Matt Judon's an interesting one. I wonder. I got to think that Baltimore is going to try and reel him back in, I would think. But
you'd think.
You never know. Trey Hendrickson, Olivier Vernon, Tech McKinley is a very interesting guy. I still remember his draft day. What was his grandma or his mama or whatever? Yeah, he was he was hyped.
He's a very excited young man.
Very hyped. Romeo Aquara, Jordan Jenkins, Bruce Irvin. I don't think I need to go through. I mean, Justin Houston's still on this list. I don't even know how old he is right now.
412.
Somewhere. Like Kamale Correa, Tano Passanon. And there's some guys at the bottom end of this. John Simon. They've been bouncing around for a little while. Tyus Bowser, Pernell McPhee. Wow, the Ravens have like four guys on this
four guys on
edge list. Yes. I wonder what they might want in the draft. Doesn't seem like they're going to get any wide receivers. They don't really need them anyways. And just don't throw the ball.
Don't throw the ball, yeah.
There's a contract we're waiting on hearing about. It's like people are complaining about the Ravens and having some cap room. It's like, well, they're starting negotiations with Lamar Jackson. And, based on what Dak Prescott just got, what was that, exclusive rights franchise tag? Whoo, buddy. I could only imagine what that money's going to be. And, I get in some of these groups, and there's some that are like smack talk groups. I'm not sure if you're in them too. But they're always talking about Lamar's running back. Yeah, Lamar's a running back, and, well, here's his completion percentages. And they put him up against Baker Mayfield, and the numbers look all great until you realize that Baker's thrown 500-some more attempts, and I don't know how many more yards. It's like, yeah, if you only throw the ball 200 times, I mean, you got to hope the guy's connecting with more of those. Dink and dunk.
I'm not. I don't venture into the Facebook group world anymore.
Nah, you know what? I don't blame you. Social media is kind of poisonous. I still try and keep in touch with all the, fine Steelers fans, and I get in some debate. There's been some cool debate back and forth, even in the YouTube comments. I mean, I wasn't necessarily trashing some of these websites that are out there, but there's people we don't have animosity with, then there's others who just rip off guys like Mike Clay. You know what I mean? We'll give them credit. They'll publish this without even acknowledging he exists. So, Yeah, and they've done it to us.
Change the color scheme, and then it's theirs.
Well, I mean, seriously, when you could go on Twitter or just go on NFL.com or Steelers.com, I don't like to regurgitate that stuff on our own website and try and make it seem like it's original. And we at least try and have some original opinions, such as our free agent wish lists. We have a Throwback Thursday right now that we do each week, so we try and do a little bit of fan service. We try and we use the thinker a little bit here, but the reason I was bringing that up was it just popped in my head that JuJu was on Fortnite and changing skins of different player uniforms and kind of taunting and trolling everyone out there as far as free agency starting up. And everybody's like, oh, he did a Dolphins uniform. And it's like, well, he did a Steelers one too. But of course, the clickbait came out and, several of these places that said it. And again, it's a quota-based type thing. And they're trying to get clicks and get the ad revenue. And it's like, we would appreciate all that too. So we appreciate you viewing. And I don't take any offense. You listen to other Steelers shows, that's good. We do the same thing. I don't listen to maybe as many podcasts or anything, but I definitely watch NFL Network, ESPN, the occasional maybe Skip or Shannon or something like that. I mean, I could only take so much of those guys, but it's the same thing as getting your news or your sports fix. You're going to go to different outlets and stuff. It's just, it's when the original news comes from a very specific spot. So it kind of, that's when it gets under my skin. It grinds my gears. Or if it's just a very preposterous type of whatever we were talking about the other day. I've already forgotten about it. Probably it was something with Alejandro Villanueva signing somewhere and things like that. So drives me nuts, grinds my gears.
I understand.
Okay, we're on to, let's see. I don't think they're in the linebacker market either, really.
Unlikely.
Very unlikely with Vince. I imagine they do something.
Unless they cut Vince. But
they would have done it already, I would think.
Yeah, are you going to cut Vince in order to make room for somebody else that's out there? I don't think so.
I mean, they're getting Devin Bush back. They need restricted free agent Robert Spillane so far. Ray McLeod, by the way, signed since we talked. That was one to ding, ding, ding. We hit the nail on the head there, not just a hat rack. I don't claim to know it all, but you know what? I will tell you when we get it right. I'm going to ignore it when I get it wrong. That's going to be this whole show. Cornerback.
See, that's the difference here. You tell everybody look, we got that right. Whereas I focus on the fact that we get it wrong.
No, that makes us look like idiots. Well, it makes you look like an idiot.
I look like
a genius on the other hand. Cornerbacks, defensive backs. I don't really see. We'll put it this way: William Jackson III. Why would they sign somebody like that? I would rather keep Cam Sutton or Mike Hilton or something. Where would he fit?
Try and keep your own first and see what happens. If you can't, then you got to look. So,
I mean, it's a matter of cap space here too. Patrick Peterson, Xavier Rhodes, Malcolm Butler. What would they do with these guys? They can't afford them. Safety, I think we're going to nix that one too. There's guys on here like Keanu Neal or Malik Hooker. Zach Celadonia's yearly want Trey Boston.
Yes, every single year.
He's a free agent like every year. This guy's like the 1-year deal wonder moving around the league. So there's some other guys, Carl Joseph from the Browns and stuff, and Andrew Sendeo, who my uncle trashed brutally. My uncle being a Browns fan, we were talking some football over the weekend. So it's the first time I talked to him since the wild card game, by the way. So I was a little leery on even having a discussion about football, unless it was college. We could talk college. So. Okay, offensive tackle, I think we'll talk about that. Guard, all the linemen here. Kicker and punter, I think that's off the table too. Jordan Berry's on this list, but if anything, they'll pick up. I don't even know if they draft someone. You said they would draft someone maybe.
I just said I think it'll be fun to draft Drew Chrisman.
How many punters and kickers really get drafted each year? Like a handful apiece? Like if that?
My theory is I'll take him in the 6th or 7th round over anybody else that I get in the 6th and 7th round that I'm going to cut anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and the only reason you're doing that is to make sure you guarantee you have an opportunity to put them on your roster, because you just never know. You get someone, I don't know, you get someone, let's say like an Alabama kicker or punter. I don't even know if they're coming out, but they may want to stay like around that area or something. So maybe instead of signing with, I don't know, the San Francisco 49ers, I don't even know if they need a specialist, but they may stick around and play in Jacksonville or something. That's a shorter drive, New Orleans, something of that nature. So that's the only reason, like, I think any team really goes and drafts that. And if you draft a long snapper, they should just fire the GM right away. Anyways, looking around,
especially one that doesn't make the team.
Yeah, that was pretty rough, man. And we defended that pick too, but then again,
we did.
Sixth rounder. You're throwing a dart.
Yes, I'm not caring.
I don't know. Somebody will find someone that was taken in that draft and say, look, they could have had this guy instead. It would have been a running back, and it would have been like the 7th running back on the roster. It probably still wouldn't have made the Steelers roster at that point. So it's also a moot point because they weren't looking for that position. So neither are we. I'm going to start at tight ends, Brian, just because I want to have some fun. I don't think they sign any of these guys. I know the professor likes one on this list. Let's run it down real quick. Hunter Henry. Nope.
Can't afford him.
Jonnu Smith. I think he is going to command a price tag, even though he's been kind of. I mean, he's still an athletic guy. Maybe some team will feel he didn't, get the right opportunity in Tennessee. Which, by the way, if the Steelers were that team, okay, I'd be excited about that. But I don't see it. Gronk, does he play again? I don't
care.
Gerald Everett, kind of hot cold right there. From the Rams. I liked him coming out. There's another guy. I think they found him in like the 4th or 5th round. A lot of these guys are like 3rd, 4th, 5th round type picks here too when they came into the league. Kyle Rudolph. I'm kind of surprised he's not retiring. I know a lot of people got excited. Oh, he was cut immediately. Go get him. He's like 32, 33 years old. Jordan Reed, perpetual concussions here and not on the field.
We already played with that. We don't need that.
Yeah, Trey Burton, Jared Cook, he's got to be getting up there too, coming off the Saints roster here. He's been capable, but hey, as a tight end too, and if he comes in, he's just looking to play another year and nobody's throwing money at him, maybe. Tyler Eifert, that's a no for me, dog. Richard Rodgers, I don't know. Richard Rodgers, maybe not. I don't know. Josh Hill is the one that the professor liked from New Orleans. And we all thought he was going to have some monster breakout type potential, especially when Jimmy Graham left there, and that never materialized. The rest of these, Demetrius Harris, Tyler Kroft, Dan Arnold, Jacob Hollister, James O'Shaughnessy, Luke Stalker, Jeff Swaim. I'm landing it right there. I don't need to read the rest of these. I think you may have seen
Blake Bell is offended.
Blake Bell should be offended. I'm not sure who Blake Bell is. But anyway, Labs was talking about like they may secure the top of the tight end depth chart. It's like, really, they're going to throw money at another tight end like they did Eric Ebron. And granted, Eric Ebron isn't like the highest paid guy. I think cap hit wise, he's like 4th overall. But I think he's barely top 10 when you take into account his actual cash value, just because of the way they spread the contract out. That's the way it works even with Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson. You look at it, and their cap hit is higher, but they're in the final year of this contract, of both of their contracts, right? So a lot of this stuff was spread out, and you can't restructure it any further. So maybe there's an extension done with either of those guys, and keep them in-house a few more years, spread some money around, something of that nature. But that's the reason why sometimes it looks like funny business. So don't look at like full contract. Always look at like the yearly cash is what I'm looking at, because the rest of this stuff, you're not going to save the money on it anyways if they were cut. And it doesn't really effectively, I think, show where they're paid. It's somewhere in the middle, you know what I mean? But tight end, I don't know, man. I love my boy Kevin Rader. I think him and Eric Ebron. Rader is a blocking guy. Zach Gentry, I think the clock's ticking. But I mean, they went into a season with Xavier Grimble as their number 2 with Vance McDonald. So I don't know how much they would value a free agent tight end as much as it would be cool to see like a Hunter Henry or something. A lot of these guys have had a lot of this list, they've had their injury issues too. Yeah. So I don't know. You mentioned it, Ladarius Green. We don't want another situation like that. So
no, not at all.
I think we could table that. Tight end.
Yeah, look, if they secure the top of the tight end position, I don't know where they're doing it from because I don't think it's on this list regardless.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody on this list that's worth throwing a lot of money at to begin with. So, I mean, maybe JuJu Smith, maybe. But even then, not a lot of money. And they just don't have the money to throw around. So they've got other bigger needs. Well, I don't know. Tight end is going to be a need with Vance retiring, but I don't know how big it is.
Yeah, but just how much? You know what? I could answer that question. Let me see. I just happen to have it pretty much in front. In fact, I got Vance highlighted 44% of the snaps last year. Now, granted, he was hurt a little bit, but let's go across the games that he probably had close to, let's say, full health. 59%, 55%, 51, 56, 62, 44, 40, 29. Probably got banged up, missed the next week at Cincinnati in week 10. Played 5 snaps against Jacksonville. That was likely because he was probably still banged up, and they were trying to gear up for that big Thanksgiving night game against the Ravens, which was eventually played on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Thank you, NFL. That screwed nothing up at all. Let's see. 39%, 39, 39, 33. I think this may have been a game Eric Ebron missed or got hurt. He played 92% there, obviously. He was relied on a little more. 24%, and then the final game of the season, 88, with Ebron not playing, sitting out that Week 17 game against the Browns. So when you look at it, we're talking about a guy that's probably playing about a third to half of a game in the system. And I don't know that you throw a lot of money at somebody like JuJu Smith to do that when you already have Ebron on the roster, and you may be able to take one of these other two between Gentry and Rader, have somebody that can at least hopefully be a capable blocker. We don't know that Gentry's ever even going to get to a Jesse James level at this point. No. And he's had his own issues too where he can't get on the field. So I think maybe a later draft pick. Let's talk about that too. We were expecting more than one comp pick, and even the one that they ended up getting, the single one, did say that the Steelers were in that pool for a second one, but since it fell out of, they give out 32. Basically, because there's 32 franchises, they fell somewhere between 32 and 37 or something like that, whatever the other teams were. So they get one in the 4th round. That might be prime picking for, wasn't that where George Kittle came out of, 4th or 5th round too? You got a couple of guys like this. I want to even say, hold on.
There's no George Kittle in this draft.
Well, and and Eric will forever live and die by saying they should have gotten George Kittle. But was Darren Waller? I don't know that you know these things heading into this. Round 6, 2015, and late bloomer too. The last 2 years he's been solid, but 2015, 2016, think about it. He's been in the league for a little while, So who knows? Maybe Zach Gentry turns into that. You just never know. I'm not holding my breath, however, but let's go over to the wide receivers. And the only reason I'm mentioning wide receiver here, JuJu headlines Mike Clay's list here. The reason I think there could be a shot at JuJu, I mean, even with the edge rusher deal with Bud Dupree, he's going to get paid. We said on the other show it's one or the other. Just look at all of these wide receivers on this list. Now, some of these guys are kind of getting past their heyday, but the amount of them, how much money are you going to be able to throw around when you've got Kenny Golladay, Will Fuller, Corey Davis, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Brown, Sammy Watkins, T.Y. Hilton, Marvin Jones, Nelson Aguilar, John Brown, and he's already kind of hinted at the Steelers.
To come here.
That's a guy I've been wanting, and I don't mention him enough, and he ended up getting more money than I thought he was going to get, like $8 million a season or something like that with Buffalo on the last contract, and even before that he went and signed with the Ravens. Let's see, Emmanuel Sanders. A lot of people, again, another former Steeler hits the waves, and it's like he's pretty much done. I mean, he's at the end of his career here. I think he could still kind of be a contributor maybe with someone. Where's he at age-wise? 33. So he's the Hines Ward age at the tail end of the career. Badmouth
He's not
Ben.
coming here.
Yeah, Badmouth Ben, and he's burned some bridges across the NFL when he went to become a free agent too. Yeah. So that's, is someone taking a shot on a 33-year-old there? I don't know. AJ Green's up there as well, 32 or 33. Brashad Perryman, the forever is this guy good or not type player everywhere he bounces around. Alshon Jeffrey, who had issues with injuries recently with the Eagles. Golden Tate is up there in age as well. But we did say one thing in the back rooms about Golden Tate. We know he could catch the ball.
Yep.
So I don't know. Do some of these veterans hang on? You think of it from a personal level. Some of these guys they might be getting tired. They don't want to bang their body up anymore. They move their family from whatever city they've been living in for the last few years. Some of them don't live in the city they play in, so that might not actually affect that decision either. They may just have an apartment or bunk up with somebody. You never know. But do they do it for like veteran minimum and things of this nature, or they just say, screw it, I'm done with this whole thing? If they have a shot maybe at winning something, that could factor into it too. So I would still think the Steelers are, a class organization that would be considered a contender for some of these players. Let's see. We expect Larry Fitzgerald to probably retire. Rashad Higgins. Josh Reynolds is a guy I liked when he came out in the draft, and he got buried in that Rams depth chart when it comes to wide receivers. So don't know. He's dropped some passes too, so he'd fit right in. We're still going down this list. It's interesting. Keelan Cole, I liked him from Jacksonville. And then you get to John Ross, a former first-round draft pick, top wide receiver taken in the draft by the Cincinnati Bengals. Speed kills, Brian.
Yep.
And that's it. Chris Conley, Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun's probably on the way out. Adam Humphries, Des Bryant, Demarcus Robinson, Willie Snead, Dede Westbrook, Mohamed Sanu. I'm done. That's all the more. I don't need to keep going down some of this list.
You didn't need to go that far.
No, I probably didn't. I think some of the point is at the top half of this, some of these guys, they may sway a team that's like, do we pay JuJu a few extra million, or do we save some money, or they might be in cap situation too because of it being 182, and maybe it makes it more difficult to sign JuJu. Mike Clay has JuJu as the top guy. I don't know that I put him over Kenny Golladay. I might put him over Will Fuller. Will Fuller's been hurt and inconsistent here or there. Corey Davis has just come on strong. He might be peaking. A few of these other guys have been around for a while, so it's like Sammy Watkins or does T.Y. Hilton still got anything in the tank? Or Marvin Jones. Aguilar had a career resurgence with the Raiders recently. So it's like, where do you put it as far as he's young and he's got the potential, but how does he fit with your system, So maybe there's a chance. I don't know.
I'll call my shot here. I expect JuJu to go to the Jets.
The Jets. That's another place where careers die.
Yeah, I'm not because I think it's a good move. I just expect the Jets to throw the most money at him. I expect the Jets, and this is all assuming that they keep Sam Darnold, because of course there's a history between JuJu and Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like he could be advocating for that. It won't surprise me if that's the case. I think that there's, as much as the commentation or the commentary has come out of JuJu's camp that he wants, I want to be a Steeler for life and all that. I don't believe that's going to happen, and I believe money will talk, and that's what will end up paving the way. I think there will be at least 4 suitors that will pay him considerably more than the Steelers are going to be able to.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I just saw something come across my wire here. It's the Finsider, which is another of these SB Nation sites for the Miami Dolphins. Mm-hmm. And Finn, P-H, like a dolphin. And they're asking the question if JuJu and James Conner could go to the Dolphins. I mean,
could. Anything's possible. Hey.
I was trying to look. Let me see everybody who has the cap room. So the Jets are the second most right now to the Jaguars, who have the most. The New England Patriots have quite a bit there. That could be an interesting type of move. In fact, a James Conner in New England, as much as I would hate seeing that, as much as that would suck, the way they rotate in, use a rotation of running backs, that could be very beneficial for him versus going somewhere he would be a bell cow, such as, the Jaguars wouldn't need him. The Jets need just about everything at this point. Colts wouldn't need him. Bengals wouldn't need him. Washington doesn't need him. So you go down this list of who has money. Broncos wouldn't need him. Miami's there. Chargers, they wouldn't need him. Browns wouldn't need him. 49ers, I don't know. They seem to make anything work when it comes to running backs. Texans, who knows? So, it'd be interesting to see who has the money, what kind of money they have. A lot of these teams, let's see. Panthers are set at the position, I think. Cardinals are set at the position. Cowboys, Bills, Raiders, Seahawks, Ravens, Titans, Vikings. Not a lot of teams here, I think, that unless they're adding a guy to kind of be in a rotation or a backup. I don't know about Connor's market here. We really didn't discuss that a whole lot prior. But as we get into the running backs list here, Brian, atop this list, well, the reason people want to go move on from James Conner is because of an injury history and not being available to play in games, which I totally get. Aaron Jones at the top of this list is going to go to whoever is going to show him the money. A little Jerry Maguire right there. It will not be the I don't want to bet the farm on it. Was this the one you bet? No, you bet something else as far as how many running backs are going in the draft.
Yeah, my bet is how many. I'll double down on that bet though with Aaron Jones. The Steelers will not sign Aaron Jones, and if they do, I'll do the podcast in my shorts.
No, jeez. Can we at least a tank top or a wife beater or something?
I told you I'll wear pasties.
Oh, jeez. And so long, everyone. This will be the last episode of this. Well, we feel pretty secure that we won't see Brian half nude or whatever because Aaron Jones, we don't think is going anywhere as far as Pittsburgh, Steel City, anything like that. Chris Carson, here's a guy with some injury history too. Kenyon Drake, I think, would be inconsistent. The reason he's hitting the market is because they have Chase Edmonds there, so they already got the guy waiting in the wings that is capable. Connor's fourth on this list. Leonard Fournette, we talked about last show. Marlon Mack, coming off a major injury. Jamal Williams was the backup to Jones. Never quite found his footing there. Duke Johnson, James White, utility guy, might be going back to New England. New England does this too. It's like, screw you, you're all going away. And then they get their way and bring them back in the fold and pay them something that they want. It's usually what happens. Todd Gurley, I wouldn't touch him with a 40-foot stick. Carlos Hyde. Here's the one we haven't talked about. Le'Veon Bell. They showed interest last year, supposedly trade deadline interest in 2019 with the Jets.
But I would have needed confirmation on what that interest actually was and whether it was just made up interest because somebody said, I think Pittsburgh would like to have him back because James Conner's hurt.
Sources.
Yes. Sources tell me.
It's usually just source. You're not supposed to even report it unless it's sources.
Sources me. The source is me, and that source says no.
Okay. I mean, how does he fit into this so far? Are you going to bring him in and try to give him back a starting role? And does he have anything?
Does
left
he even? He couldn't get a freaking play in so many games. No, I know that there were guys ahead of him in Kansas City, but he couldn't get on the field.
Oh, well,
he barely made a contribution to the Jets. No,
and the Jets went in, drafted LaMichael Perrine, and he was.
Let me do my own pat on the back. I said multiple times when Le'Veon Bell left, he's done. He will never have the kind of success he was going to have with the Steelers, and he would be done. Guess what? Done.
That wasn't hard to figure out, by the way, especially when he signed with the Jets. And
quit diminishing my prognostication.
Well, we agreed on that, and I also he sat out. I don't know how much animosity there is towards some of the things that happened.
I don't think the Steelers really have any ill will towards him. I just don't think that there's any need to bring him back. I don't think he doesn't have anything to offer.
I don't know that he does either, even despite what that price tag may end up being. I don't think this is a guy that you necessarily bring back. And if they do, here's the other thing. Any of these names, let's go through a few more. Tevin Coleman, Mike Davis, Wayne Gallman, Matt Breida, Malcolm Brown, Jerick McKinnon. There's a bunch of injury histories here. Adrian Peterson, who's almost 40. Frank Gore's on this list too. Mark Ingram is 32. Maybe he's going on 33. He's getting there too. I didn't know Lamar Miller was still around. Cordarrelle Patterson, Brian Hill. Okay, I don't need it. Alfred Morris is here too.
Let's bring in AP just because it'll be fun to say we have AP on our team.
You bring in any of these guys, even Theo Riddick, who's at the bottom of the barrel of the Raiders there. And you make a good point with Bell as well. I think it was Darrell Williams was an undrafted player in 2018 and got playing time over Bell, even when Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not available to play for them toward the end of the season.
His tank is empty.
And then they're getting what's-his-name back, too, that opted out of for the COVID for the season. They should have him back, too. I forgot his name. He was big in the Super Bowl the year before. But anyway, you add one of these guys. Now who are you cutting? Because you need to make room on this roster right now. It's Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, Jalen Samuels. Somebody would be like, oh, yeah, Jalen Samuels, easy. The Steelers have only really kept 3 running backs, maybe a 4th or a fullback. They still have Derek Watt. They went to 5 last year when we were making our roster predictions. You sign somebody, and pretty much you're saying that you might not be drafting someone. The only scenario that I see where this happens is like when they took a flyer
after the draft.
Yeah, well, Niall
somebody's left.
Yeah, or like Niall Davis.
Yeah.
And then he didn't end up making the team. And everybody was all big time with him, remember?
I don't know why they were.
Camp. But, I don't know either, because then when we went and saw it, we weren't there, I don't think, for the opening of camp, but after that.
It was like
a week into it maybe when we were both there, and we were like, this isn't looking too hot. I don't know what everyone else is seeing here. You get excited because of any other addition. I did it with Dante Moncrief, and of course Dante Moncrief actually looked good, and then he went and
he looked good. He looked really good.
Hey, he and Ben were on the same page. I know they were in shorts, but geez.
Then he didn't look good anymore. He went from looking really good to not looking good at all.
Yeah, that's a different kind of hot mess there. So the running back class, it's just kind of like, and don't get me wrong, they go and grab a guy. Maybe they grab if it's Kenyon Drake or Aaron Jones, but they're going to be paying them more than James Conner. Maybe they don't have the same type of baggage as far as availability on the field and injuries. They're going to pay a pretty good price, and it's going to sacrifice something else on this roster. Whereas I think they go a little cheaper and they address it in the draft, and then you're not worried about and then you could knock it completely out and say, well, we're not going to use a pick on a running back in the draft if you take one of these guys. But I just don't see it. I think running back is more cost effective and has potential. And if it doesn't work out, they just get a guy that the following year. You know what I mean? It's I think they got a couple of guys that could use. So
I believe they'll draft a running back, and I don't believe they will sign one in free agency. If they do, it'll be after the draft when they realize they didn't get their guy and they need to sign somebody, and it'll be whatever's left.
Well, I think this leaves the offensive line because I don't see them picking up any major free agents anywhere on defense.
No. They certainly could if the right thing falls apart or something just comes to terms, but I don't think they're going to be heavy players, and really they're not. It's going to be a support move more so than anything else. It's not going to be a starter.
Yeah, and I look at even someone like Matt Judon. If the Ravens don't end up keeping him, he's more of a traditional kind of outside linebacker, a guy who gets at the quarterback a lot. They're familiar. I made this comment, and I'm going to circle back to it here when we talk about some of the offensive linemen. Is like you see a lot of sometimes the lateral movement of players within the same division because teams are more intimately familiar, having seen that player a couple of times each season over the course of, let's say, a 3 or 4 year contract. So, but I just don't see it. In fact, I would expect him back in Baltimore. You would think. Offensive line.
All right. Since we're gonna talk about this, let me just throw this out at the beginning, because one of our commentators, Lumberzack 94, he put in his I guess stamp of approval on Bud as a pass rusher, and I'm gonna refute that and basically say the reason that Al looked pretty good as a pass rusher, pass protection, is because the ball was getting out in 3 seconds or less. Al couldn't stand up. I mean, he could not stand up against rushes last year. If you watch games where the ball did not come out right away, Al was getting killed. And the Wizard, we know people who work for PFF, and they don't think that the ratings that they gave Al were right. So So, I don't care what the ratings were from PFF, and they're using their wonderful little analytical formula based on what was real, and what was real was there was a way that they were protecting it. I said it all year long. They were protecting the O-line. That's why the passes were coming out so fast. Al was not that good in pass pro last year either. He has degraded severely. I'm amazed that they have him ranked as the second tackle.
Mike
quite
Clay does.
frankly.
Yeah,
Amazed.
Well, this is the reason, Brian.
But I want to say I respect the fact that he put it out there. I don't agree with you, but I respect it, and he was a much better pass protector previously.
Steelers, as a defensive unit, again, lead the league in sacks 4 years in a row. The most span over probably about 80 games or something now, or close to it. 56 sacks. The reason I mention that is that they, as a unit, the offensive line only gave up 14. Then again, when you look at how many yards they actually ran for, I think they had a combined here, and this is like everybody combined, 1351, which is near or at the complete bottom of the league. So there were issues. We mentioned it too. A lot of it had to do with predictable play calling. Go back to one of those shows. Is predictable play calling and also situational. They go under center. It's like, well, especially Benny Snell's on the field. It's like they're running the football. And then they go into shotgun, and then there's definitely no doubt about it. When Ben empties out the backfield, they're going to pass. It was just highly, highly predictable. It's amazing he didn't go down as often as he did with as many times as he attempted passes in 2020, which would have been, the entire team. Ben was 608. The entire team was 656. Their opponents threw the ball 526. So they may have attempted the most in the league or close to it. But, exactly. Your point's valid with Big Al. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to note this, with Mike Clay. I have to say it like, what's his face from Die Hard? Clay. Even though that was Bill Clay, it's Mike Clay. His rankings, his unit grades, the wonderful high-quality offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers got a 0.6. 0.6. The only group on the team that got worse grade than that was the running backs, which got a 0.4. That doesn't add up to a lot of good yardage there. And it shows you where you need to address your problems. We said it all last year, and I keep saying it. It's O-line and then running back.
Well, he has the offense 22 overall as far as groups, and the defense number 1 overall. That kind of bounces them into 11 overall. But there aren't very many teams where he felt that they were much worse. The Seahawks were in here too. And I like Chris Carson. Sorry, I got a little sniffles here for some reason. Don't mean to do that in the mic. But anyways, offensive tackle, Alejandro Villanueva, second behind Trent Williams. I mean, whatever he's smoking, I don't do the smoking, but pass it over. I might give it a try, see if I like it. Might alleviate some of my stress. Let's see, Darrell Williams, Kelvin Beachum. Hey, we still haven't gotten to our whole offensive line thing, but shooting my shot here. You want to talk about former Steelers and bringing someone back. This is the guy who lost his job to Alejandro Villanueva due to injury, ACL, I believe. Yep. And that was back 2015 season. And back then, they had offered him a contract. They were ready to say goodbye to Ramon Foster, and it was either Foster or Beachum. He couldn't afford both of them. It was an either-or situation. Beachum bet on himself, was going to go to enter free agency, got hurt. They saw what they had. They got the sneak preview of Alejandro Villanueva for however many games that year, at least half the season, I think, or more. And c'est la vie. He went to Jacksonville on a 1 year with it had an option for 4 years, but that team don't know what they're doing. So then he went to the Jets for a few years, and then he went to the Cardinals last year on another 1 year deal. He's around 32, 33 years old, but he is kind of he was drafted the same year as David DeCastro, right?
Yep.
I believe so, yeah.
I think.
Seventh rounder, because they had Mike Adams, who didn't work out, the second-round pick that year.
Right.
They went heavy on an offensive line. It's the way I see it maybe in this upcoming draft. I'm not saying bring him in as a starter. I'm not sure how many other teams may view him as a starter, when you look at some of the other names on this list. And, of course, Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher are going to be dumped into this list soon, too. I think someone else, Riley Reif, just got cut as well, owed a lot of money with the Vikings. I wouldn't hate it, but I don't know how they do it, man. I don't know how they find the money. That's the thing that's so hard for me. I'm not the cap wizard. Hardly anybody is. That's why you got Omar Khan and Kevin Colbert and guys doing this. But if Kelvin Beachum isn't too highly valued, this could be a guy that's like going into the weekend or early next week. Maybe it's a return trip to Pittsburgh. I don't think he has any burnt bridges. Again, like I said, leadership and someone that we anticipate Zach Banner coming back. Chuks Okorafor is entering his final year. Could you get maybe a year or two with Kelvin Beachum and maybe at least have him there for depth? I wouldn't dislike that at all.
No, I have no problems with bringing Beach back. There's going to be a lot of options. The problem is everybody's always offensive line starved, right? There are always teams that need to upgrade their offensive line. Tackles are a premium position. Mm-hmm. There are going to be some good tackles out there on free agency, but the Steelers are just not going to be able to afford them. They're not going to be able to pay the kind of money that some of these guys are going to get. Beachum is a solid sign if they did it. I think, he's, as you said, he's a guy who can provide depth. He's a guy who could spot start. He could potentially even start long term if needed for the season. Long term in the season, not long term in years.
Yeah.
It's not. I think that they are again better off drafting the guy that comes in and sits a year, and that, as opposed to signing a guy to stopgap them for 2 years.
Well, maybe both. We see them usually.
Maybe both. Yeah,
we usually see them grab a free agent and then draft at that position. And I think tackle is something that could be worrisome. I don't know how much they throw at Zach Banner, and they originally had him on the right, and now they're going to try and work him on the left, and we don't know if that'll work.
You don't know. So we'll see. I think if there's a position that they probably try and bolster a little bit, it is probably tackle. And, at least as far as bolstering, and I mean by depth. Again, I'm not talking – I don't think they're going to go out and sign a starter. I just don't think that they can. I think they're going to try and sign a guy that is a fail-safe for them. The assumption will be is it's Okorafor and Zach Banner, and then they want something in the wings in case one of those two doesn't work out.
Yeah, and don't forget, the reason we're saying this, 3 tackles on this list, all from the Steelers. We've got Villanueva, you've got Banner still, and then Gerald Hawkins, all on this list. There's some other guys. Russell Kuhn, man, he's been around the block. I mean, it's not somebody I'm targeting. Mike Remmers. Oh, man, Kansas City, talk about an offensive line. There was a tweet that was out there, man. They've got some repairs to do there. They're going to be in the market for sure. Jason Peters. Was Jason Peters the one that had some injury problems last year?
100,000 years old.
Yeah.
He's been having injury problems for years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go through every single guy that's on here. Some names maybe more than others, but not a whole lot outside of those that really move the needle for me. Maybe it's somebody that ends up getting brought in. What was it? Ryan Harris was a player several years ago that was here for a year that you had there just as kind of an insurance policy type veteran. It's not anything here is not looking toward the future. I expect Trent Williams to go back to San Francisco, and he's going to be a very high dollar guy they can't afford anyways. But I was just looking at Kelvin Beachum's age and situation and just thinking of, whether or not he would be the kind of fit and whether he would want to compete, whether that's something that's appealing for him. I don't know. He could maybe still end up with a role with some other team. So just pure speculation there. We did mention offensive line, but do we really think they'll go after a guard?
No,
I don't.
Unless DeCastro retires, no.
And I don't think that's coming either.
I don't either.
They got him for at least a year. I think it's a position they may look at in the draft too. Kevin Dotson's certainly capable.
Got Dotson, yeah.
Matt Filer could be brought back. And here's another thing about PFF. Matt Filer previously as the right tackle in 2019, moving to left guard. He was pretty high rated as well as a right tackle, and the Steelers didn't feel that was the fit that they wanted for him. And naturally, he was a guard to begin with. So much like Chris Hubbard, who ended up going to the Browns, Chris Hubbard had never even played tackle, I don't think, and they had to put him in there. It was out of necessity. Ended up doing good and got a big contract. So
yes, he did.
A very similar type thing here with Matt Filer, and I just wonder how they feel about Dotson, and do they view Dotson as DeCastro's successor? You know what I mean? So maybe they bring Filer back. I don't know.
Yep.
But I don't see a whole lot going on here with guard. I just don't think that they're going to focus their energy here. Center, however, is a big, gaping black hole of the universe. If there's anything on this whole chart that I've been looking at this whole time, running back, tight end, defensive players, quarterbacks, even tackles, I am looking at the center position. Let's see who we got here. Corey Linsley from Green Bay, David Andrews from New England, Austin Ryder from the Chiefs, Alex Mack from the Falcons. Mack, I'd be curious if he decides to retire too. He's been around for a minute. Tyler Shatley from Jacksonville, Matt Skura from Baltimore. Let me come back around to this. Ted Karras from the Dolphins, Ben Garland, the 49ers, Ethan Posick, Seahawks, Austin Blythe from the Rams. Let's see, Nick Martin, Houston, Dan Feeney from the Chargers, Joe Looney from Dallas, and you're starting to get into some of the backups here as we go down this list, including B.J. Finney and Russell Bodine at the very bottom of it. And he's got B.J. Finney pretty far down there. Let's start with B.J. Finney since another former Steeler surfaces on this list, and everybody, as soon as they saw the news that he would be available, he ended up in the Bengals as part of a trade with Carlos Dunlap and the Seattle Seahawks. He signed with the Seahawks last season for what we thought was a surprising figure that the Steelers could have afforded. The professor, Coach Meckler there, had said, and he changed my mind on this. I'm gonna acknowledge it publicly. I don't change my mind often. I'm set in my ways, get off my lawn, just like you say. And I was like, you know what? They wouldn't have let B.J. Finney go to Seattle if they had valued him as much as, everybody immediately, Twitter, free agency Twitter or whatever, values bringing him back to the Steelers. But then again, salary cap issue, maybe. BJ can go and make more money. And then this little tidbit surfaced here about in Seattle, the reason why they moved on from him. He was penciled in to be the starting center up there, right?
Yep.
Because he didn't want to get hurt and had to deal with some type of incentives with roster bonus or whatever else that was built into his contract. He was looking at it from a financial aspect and maybe playing it safe, and that got him in hot water and sent him packing to a place nobody ever wants to go. That is Northern Kentucky. I mean Cincinnati. I am very sorry, my Kentucky friends. But no one is a Bengals fan, not even there in their own town. This is an interesting thing because I told you guys in the back room, I said I would point out some names here. The other guy who replaced him was Ethan Posick, who they've been trying to not have as a center in Seattle for whatever reasons over the last 2 years. He ends up falling back into that position. He's been playing guard, I believe left guard at that. We're starting to ding, 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 ding. These two guys were actually supposed to be alongside each other, right? On the Seattle offensive line, which wasn't too well. Their running backs weren't ranked very high on this list, but their offensive line much higher ranked by Mike Clay than quite a few teams that are on here. To be completely honest, they had them at a 2.8, and we know they were able to run the ball. So B.J. Finney, I'm kind of surprised because the Bengals, they don't have a whole lot in store with their offensive line, and that's how Joe Burrow got hurt. But B.J. Finney, we know, is position versatile, and we know Ethan Posick is position versatile. Mm-hmm. I've had these conversations. I don't know that Seattle, do they take a stab and try and bring him back, re-sign him by the time, maybe it's old news by the time you even hear us say this. But he's kind of someone a little further down the line here that I might target. I don't expect them to be able to go and get a guy like David Andrews, and I don't know that Alex Mack, I don't know what he has to offer, or Corey Linsley. I don't expect a big name to come here. I'm kind of anticipating the Steelers spending a mid-round pick on a center, but is that somebody that jumps in and plays right away? It's another insurance policy type thing. I don't think, as you said, no Marquise Pouncey in this draft.
No.
So
this is not a great center draft. It's the strength of this draft on the offensive line is the exterior. It's the tackles. That's the strength. The interior of this is a weak draft. Even the guys that are leading it are only potential guys. I don't think that any of them really wow you. Like you said, there's no Marquise Pouncey in this draft. There's no guy that, quite frankly, there's not a guy in this draft in the interior offensive line, especially at center. Let me just stick at center then, because there may be a guard that might be worth being in the first round, but there's no center. And they've mocked Creed Humphreys to the Steelers in the first round. No, there is no center in this draft that deserves to be a first round pick. There just isn't.
Second round, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too in the second round.
Maybe if he goes a little further down there.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Colbert's history with second and third round picks is just phenomenal when you go back the last few years. They didn't have a first round pick last year, so it was Chase Claypool and Alex Highsmith. And then no second round pick because they moved up for Devin Bush in 2019. Deontay Johnson, Justin Lane. You had James Washington, Mason Rudolph, and Chuks Okorafor. Those are all knockouts there. Giving a look. Brian has no comment. Pleads the fifth. JuJu, Cam Sutton, and James Conner. And even for some intents and purposes here, Sean Davis, Javon Hargrave. Now you got to go all the way back to Senquez Golson and Sammy Coates where they had some stinkers, but some other second-round picks like Stephon Tuitt, Lev Bell. Then they had Dree Archer, Marcus Wheaton as third-round pick. So, now we're going back almost a decade, so it doesn't really matter when you go that far. So I kind of trust if they do something here, but I do think that they double up here. And you got to remember, the reason I was going through all this is Marquise Pouncey was drafted in 2010 with the first round pick, 18th overall. Before that, they were working with, they drafted A.Q. Shipley in 2009 in the 7th. Did they have anybody else? Marvin Phillip in 2006. I'm trying to think when did Dermontti Dawson end up hanging it up officially? Because there was a gap here where they went with Sean Mahan. I think he came from the Lions. He was a guard to convert to center, and that was a one-year project that did not work out. And then they went with Jeff Hardings, who was suitable. Right before that period of time that he played, and then finally they go and grab another Hall of Famer. So it wasn't an instantaneous transition of the torch here, as it may have been like Mike Webster to Dermontti Dawson necessarily. So you may have that same kind of scenario here, particularly since we're feeling it's not a strong draft at the position, and it's really not a very strong free agent class. Unless they shoot their shot. I mean, I think David Andrews probably the biggest name on here. And I'm going to throw – I said the two position versatile guys here with Finney and Posick. It would be nice because they could play guard or center. So you get somebody that maybe backs up. Maybe you don't have Filer come back. Maybe you get one or both of these guys, and they could both play center. Maybe they'll compete. They'll check it out. Maybe with a fourth-round pick or something. And
J.C. Hassenauer. There you go.
There's a reason I haven't mentioned JCH, and I feel sad because he came from Birmingham Iron of the Alliance of American Football and has been a prospect. And he wasn't completely awful at the end of the year, but his spot duty.
He was terrible.
I'm trying to be a little nicer.
No, he was terrible. Call it as it is, man. He was bad.
Hold on. I'm not even saying that his okayness, it was better than the complete, totally unredeemable play that he had prior to that when Pouncey got his rest there in week 17 was okay. They still only gave up one sack as a unit, with Mason Rudolph against the Browns in a must-win game. So I'm going to give a little, that's about the modicum of credit I'm going to give there. I do not want to see,
I don't want to see a line that
if they draft
anchored by J.C. Hassenauer.
If they sign a guy and draft a guy, he's not. I don't know that he's on the roster because you're not even going to need an extra guard because you're more or less your backup centers aren't necessarily specialists either at that position. They have to be position flexible in order to be a backup here in the NFL. So Matt Skura is my interesting one who got benched from the Ravens, fell out of grace there. How many starts does Skura have? A lot. And what does he still have to offer in the league? He's still a young guy. He entered the NFL in 2017. He is 28 years old currently, and he has 51 starts. Now, he got hurt in 2019 a little bit too, And then he also took over. He played 12 games in 2017. This is going right back to the changing of the guard once again. I'm losing the name of who they had there for a while, but when Lamar Jackson took over, this was a changing of the guard. This was a guy that they picked up, and he definitely is someone that the Steelers know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, because he had apologized. He had some bad snap issues and things of that nature. And certainly, if the Steelers were to sign him, that'd be the first thing that everybody would end up talking about. But here's another guy that was undrafted and then ended up becoming a starter in the NFL. So you just never know where you're going to find these starting centers from. The only reason I think we mentioned Posick in particular is we looked at him during the draft process. I think the Steelers had looked at him as well, and he was a second-round pick from a big college such as LSU. But again, when another team is trying to move a guy from playing center and he just ends up being there, I don't know that anyone on this list is necessarily the answer. That's the bottom line I'm trying to get at,
yes, that's
Brian.
true.
Center is going to be a bugaboo for the Steelers this season. I don't know that a free agent or a draft pick is instantly at this time on paper the answer. They could grow into that, such as Jeff Hardings, for example, and be a capable player, but it's not the Hall of Fame quality level of performance that we have come to expect from two guys that are in the Hall right now and one that will have a bust in the future in Marquise Pouncey. It's just not there, so we can't expect it. We can't bang our fist on the desk and want it. That's something that they're going to do something here short term, and they're going to be looking at it in coming years, because let's face it too, when they watch the film and they're scouting guys in college, they know the crop of guys that are coming up next, and they're going to have some plans. They're going to have some check marks next to some young men that are, sophomores going on juniors and juniors going on seniors. So I think they're looking ahead at 2022, say that 3 times fast, and beyond at the center position. Unfortunately, as uncomfortable as that makes me feel, free agent and a draft pick, and let's roll the dice. Both of those guys, it might not be a 16-game starter with any of the pickups that they end up getting here at the center position.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the answer. I don't think. I'm going to repeat that. Think the answer is
and
here.
You've been known to be
I know
wrong,
the answer.
admittedly.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm never wrong. I'm never wrong. I'm always right. It's just that I'm only eventually right. But I will tell you, the answer is not here in the free agent draft. The free agent class is not going to be any kind of long-term answer at center. It's a stopgap measure. There may be a long-term answer at center. There may be a guy, because there are a couple guys I actually like at center in this draft, but they're going to need time to grow. They're not first-round picks. That's not what their level is right now, but they're guys who can turn into quality starters, I think, down the road. And we'll just have to see. I think the Steelers can get a decent quality center in the second or the third rounds that can grow into the position. Maybe even take it over before the end of the year, but probably not walk into it at the beginning.
By the way, Alex Mack is 35. He'll be 36 in November. Been in the league since 2009 when he was the first-round draft pick of the Cleveland Browns. And an anchor there for very many years.
I can tell you that boy is not looking to come back to AFC North football. I'm just telling you.
He's been playing in a dome in that soft NFC South.
Like, I ain't going back up north. No, to hell with that.
Yeah, I mean, he did very well, even with the Falcons. But he's fallen off the last couple of years after being like a perennial All-Pro and a Pro Bowl player and an All-Decades team player. Maybe another Father Time has caught up with you. I mean, we have some rosy feelings on a lot of various players and even guys that you might have on your wish list. So curious to hear some of our viewers and readers' thoughts out there. So send them our way. I don't think I had anything in particular to single out from the comments section this time.
I'll tell Jay Vega that my bubble has not burst. I'm okay. I'm really okay. It doesn't bother me. Look. I like the BTSC guys. I like them. I don't know any of them. I've never spoken to one of them, but I like them.
Oh, no. I had Jeff. I was saying I had Jeff on here
you used to have
before
Jeff
you were
on
my co-host. Yeah.
But I've watched their show a time or two, and I don't dislike those guys. But so my bubble's not burst, and it's all good.
No, it doesn't.
And I don't even know how to address Steelers Pittsburgh. Who made the comment that I'm going to have the long sleeve T-shirt or hoodie with Bud no matter what. We got into trouble with that with Free Martavis, right? Once he was free, what do you do with that shirt?
I don't know. Do you have one sitting in the closet
I still
somewhere?
have a Free Martavis shirt. Yes, I do. So I don't know if I'm going to make the Bud no matter what hoodie. I guess it's a timing issue. You got to get it. You got to get it fast, and fast may be already too late now.
Yeah, it's well, we had someone else that said Steelers Freak was Ben is the future Hall of Famer, has won three playoff games in a decade. He will not win another Super Bowl. How do I know this? Look at his style of play. Go back and look at the meme that I debunked back in January on this show. I'm just so sick of, they lost to David Garrard. When Tomlin first started, it's like, yeah, it was a team that also didn't make the playoffs the year before that, and we're downplaying that David Garrard was a Pro Bowl player at the time, and Jacksonville was, pretty good. Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith and guys like that. It's not the Jaguars of now, and you try and rewrite some of the history. And I actually called out someone in one of these groups that was talking the same thing. I don't want to get blue in the face repeating this, but it was like they try and bring up the Ravens, and they were talking about John Harbaugh, and I was like, okay, he finally won another playoff game this season. What did he do before? You had this team, you had the league MVP, and they won 14 games and one and done. In the playoffs. The only team he beat was the Steelers, who had Ben Tate as a running back because LeGarrette Blount left town and Le'Veon Bell tore up his knee in the final game of the year, and they had to replace someone by grabbing someone off the street with 3 days notice worth of practices that was fresh off being cut from the Cleveland Browns, no less. There's all kinds of things like this, and what I always see, even going back to the wild card game, is we mentioned this the other day. No Bud Dupree, no Devin Bush. That's half your linebackers, your starting linebackers, studs, guys that were first-round picks. No Joe Hayden, former first-round pick, your top corner. That's going to drag the team down a little bit. Of course, you can't turn the ball over. And the closest they were ever at full strength was, again, 2017, the loss to the Jaguars. Were they really at full strength? They didn't have Ryan Shazier. That hurt more than you could ever possibly know. And Shazier was turning into a Troy Polamalu game-changing playmaker. He had like 5-6 picks that season before he got hurt as an inside linebacker. I think he took one to the house even, if I recall correctly. I mean, he was turning into, the guy. And as much as you like to say, as you don't want to make excuses, it's being healthy to get across the finish line. I don't know it's necessarily Ben's style of play. We'll find out. It seems like every time the Steelers lose a bad playoff game, guess who the casualty is? Bruce Arians, Todd Haley, and now Randy Fichtner. So is it the offensive coordinator or is it Ben? To be continued. Same bat time, same bat channel. Brian, I would call you the boy wonder. You're more like the
I'm an ancient wonder.
Ancient wonder, like the 8th or 9th wonder of the world. Andre the Giant is like the 8th wonder of the world, so maybe you could be like the 9th, the 10th. I don't know how far down the list goes. 50th?
Probably, yeah, and maybe lower. I don't know.
Might be lower. If you were a free agent, Mike Clay wouldn't have you on the list.
I wouldn't
run
make
out of
the
room.
list, yeah.
You would not make the list. Sad face. But not a sad face. I'm sure everybody likes having us both together. We actually were able to do this more than once, and hopefully this is a recurring theme as my schedule gets hectic. But I'll try and stick in here, folks. If you see me disappear, there's with good reason. I'll leave it at that until the other stuff happens, because you'll see and then know it. So that's all more. I'll leave it at that. But I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not getting lazy. I'm just going to be incredibly busy here coming up. So, but it's good to have my colleague back here, Brian, as well. And you mentioned the sweatshirt thing. Somebody was asking about Steel City Underground t-shirts, sweatshirts. I thought I had them up on the website at steelcityunderground.com. I do not. So I'm working on that. I'm going to get that over there. And then if you want to buy a t-shirt, by all means, support the brand, as we like to say. We all like that type of stuff. And That's all the more I could say. I'm working on it. I've just been a busy guy. If you could tell, I can't keep my eyelids open here. I've been tired, man, fatigued, just getting burned out. And
I'm tired.
Brian, don't you have a Steel City Underground T-shirt, don't you?
I do.
Somewhere.
Well, to be fair, it was a 3X. I can't wear it anymore.
Oh, no, you still could. It would just look like
it just looks
Snuggie.
really bad. I actually sold all. I don't think I sold the Steel City Underground one, but I sold all of my 3X Steelers T-shirts on eBay.
Wow. I mean, good for you, man. You should have kept them. I might be getting into that. I gotta hit the gym a little bit. I'm blessed with good genes, at least. So like all my clothes still fit. Couple extra pounds I could stand to lose, as I'm sure everyone thinks, when they look at themselves on the scale or whatever. But anyway, some of these young men are getting on the scales right now. We'll be talking about pro days and everything. I'm sure we're going to have some more news. I think next week's going to be more potpourri style as players get signed. So we're coming to you with kind of two shows that can be linked together here. Take some time, listen to them both. Still valid information going into early next week. And then we're going to be rapid fire, I think, until the free agency stuff cools off, which for the Steelers will be probably after a day or two. So, and they don't always make a move right away either.
Yes, it may not even be until 4 days in, but that may be the one move they make. So.
You know what will end up happening? We'll be doing this show, and it'll be close to the 4 o'clock deadline on like a Wednesday or Thursday, and now I'm saying it's going to happen. It's going to jinx us, and then all of a sudden it's going to be, lo and behold, the Steelers have this came across the transaction wire, and you're like, SOB. Everything I just said is, and we've done this. We've
wrong.
Had to can,
yes.
Yeah, we've had to can shows before because we've talked for too long and about too much, and then the information was invalid. It doesn't happen often, but that's why we try and avoid it. So if you don't see us super early in the week next week, you'll know why. We're just trying to get ahead of the train with the previous episode, which free agents should the Steelers keep of their own, and then, of course, this episode taking a look at some of them from around the league, none of which include a quarterback. So my name's Joe. Brian is his name. Thank you once again for joining me, Brian, and look forward to doing this again, my friend.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thank you to everybody for the listens, the comments, the likes, the shout outs, the shout ins, whatever it may be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Glad that you're aboard, and I don't know. We were gonna name the people who hung around till the end of some club, but I can't remember what. I know there's a comment. I'll have to go back and look at what the comment was. I can't remember what it was.
Well, if they hung around this long, I got one more story. Even though we're a little long in the tooth here, I just said the word. You're trying to figure out the right words. My kid is using the word. My 7-year-old daughter using the word yeet now. And that would be like, we yeeted Randy Fichtner from the team. Like, it's the throw or throw off. Yeet. I don't know. I did not come up with it. And if I'm using it wrong, please correct the old man here. I'm getting a little not as hip as I used to be.
It's a made up word.
Not as good as I once. Aren't they all?
No.
All right, my friend. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone else that's listening. We're going to get off of here. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe. And I truly do. I like to live dangerously, but you be safe. Don't say as I do, not as I do, or something like that. Do as I say, not as I do. That's how it is. So be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.